Young Xyloth screamed as his parents threw him into the dark alien wilderness and flew away forever. No one on Zephyria would help this poor, abandoned child, except for the humans. Captain James Thompson of the United Earth Space Fleet gripped the armrests of his captain's chair as the distress signal crackled through the comm system. The message, spoken in broken English, pleaded for someone, anyone, to rescue a helpless Zephyrian child named Xyloth. The boy had been cruelly abandoned in the dangerous jungles outside the city-state of Xanthar and left to die. Thompson's heart clenched. As a widowed father himself, he felt a powerful instinct to protect this innocent alien child. He had to act, even if it meant risking a confrontation with the ruthless Zephyrian High Council. Disobeying orders, Thompson diverted his ship, the USF Valiant, towards the restricted planet of Zephyria. Tensions were high as the Valiant established orbit. The Zephyrians had banished all humans from their world after a bloody conflict years ago. Thompson knew he would face harsh resistance in his quest to save young Xyloth. But the stakes were too high to ignore. If the humans did not intervene, the helpless child would surely perish alone in the unforgiving alien wilds. The fate of an innocent life hung in the balance. The Valiant's shuttle touched down in a clearing, flattening the luminous underbrush. Thompson stepped out first, plasma rifle in hand. His team fanned out behind him, scanning their surroundings. "Stay frosty, people. Those coordinates put the kids somewhere in this forest. Watch for tracks, but keep your eyes peeled. Intel says this place has more teeth than a Danubian Deathjaw convention." Private Rodriguez pointed at the ground. "Sir, I've got small footprints here. They look fresh." Thompson knelt down to examine them. The tracks belonged to a child. They had to be Xyloth's. "Good eye, Rodriguez. All right, everyone, we follow the trail, but careful. No telling what." A blood-chilling howl cut through the thick air. Shapes darted between the trees, fast and low to the ground. A pair of green eyes flashed in the shadows. "Contact! Prowlers dead ahead," Thompson barked. The wolf creatures charged out of the underbrush, all fangs and matted fur. Plasma fire lit up the forest as Thompson's team engaged the beasts. One of the prowlers pounced at Private Hawkins. He dodged, but the creature's claws raked across his leg, drawing blood. Hawkins cried out in pain and fell. "Hawkins is hit!" yelled Sergeant Nguyen. Thompson gritted his teeth and fired, the plasma bolt catching the prowler in the chest. It crumpled to the ground, dead. Hawkins tried to stand, but his injured leg buckled. I can't walk, sir." "Like hell you can't. I'm not leaving anyone behind." Thompson hauled the young soldier to his feet, slinging Hawkins' arm over his shoulder. "Nguyen, take point. Let's move, people." The team pushed deeper into the forest, following the small footprints. The bioluminescent plants cast an eerie glow, but there was no sign of Xyloth. Nguyen held up a fist, signaling the group to halt. "Sir, I see something up ahead. It looks like wreckage." They approached cautiously. It was a small Zephyrian shuttle, crashed and half buried in the underbrush. The hull was torn open, exposing the dark interior. Thompson handed Hawkins off to Corporal Janus and climbed into the wreck. The cabin was empty, save for a few scattered possessions, a child-sized boot, a torn, blood-stained tunic. "This has to be the ship the kid was on," Thompson called out. "But no bodies. Maybe he survived the crash." A piercing screech split the sky. A massive winged shape like something out of a nightmare swooped down from the clouds. It was a Zephyrian sky terror, drawn by the scent of blood. "Take cover in the shuttle. Move!" Thompson yelled. The team scrambled into the wreckage as the sky terror dove, its talons gouging huge furrows in the earth. They opened fire, but the creature's hide was too thick. Plasma bolts sparked off its scales. Thompson ripped a plasma grenade from his belt. "Concentrate your fire on its wings. Pin it down." The team focused their shots, peppering the Sky Terror's wings with plasma. It screamed in rage, unable to take flight. Thompson primed the grenade and lobbed it. The explosion ripped through the creature's chest, and it collapsed in a smoking heap. But the blast had drawn unwanted attention. A squad of Zephyrian soldiers emerged from the trees, weapons trained on the humans. At their head was Commander Xantar, his face twisted with disdain. "Humans, you dare violate our sovereign territory? Surrender now and your deaths will be quick." Thompson stepped forward, his rifle leveled at Xantar's chest. "Not happening. We're here for the child Xyloth. We're not leaving without him." Xantar sneered. "You have no claim to the boy. He is Zephyrian, and his fate is not your concern." "I'm making it my concern." Thompson's finger tightened on the trigger. "I won't let you condemn an innocent child to die." The soldiers tensed, ready to fire. The humans did the same. The forest held its breath, waiting for the first shot. A small, frightened voice pierced the silence. "Help, please." All eyes turned to the underbrush. There, trembling and wide-eyed, was a young Zephyrian child, Xyloth. Thompson's heart skipped a beat as he saw the small, trembling figure emerge from the glowing underbrush. It was a Zephyrian child, no more than 6 Earth years old. The boy was thin and dirty, his clothes torn and stained. His large, luminous eyes were wide with fear and exhaustion. Despite his trauma, the child seemed drawn to the human soldiers. He took a tentative step forward, then another, his gaze locked on their unfamiliar but kind faces. Thompson slowly lowered his rifle and knelt down, holding out a hand to the frightened boy. "Hey there, little one, it's okay. You're safe now." The child hesitated, his small body tensing as if to flee back into the forest, but something in Thompson's gentle tone and warm smile seemed to reassure him. With a choked sob, the boy ran forward and threw himself into the captain's arms, clinging to him like a lifeline. Thompson held the child close, feeling the boy's tiny frame shaking with sobs. "Shh, it's all right. I've got you. You're safe." Commander Xantar and his soldiers watched the scene with a mix of shock and confusion. The sight of a battle-hardened human soldier comforting a weeping Zephyrian child was not something they had ever expected to witness. After a long moment, Xantar lowered his weapon, signaling for his troops to do the same. He stepped forward, his expression a mix of sadness and anger. "The boy's name is Xyloth," Xantar said, his voice heavy with emotion. "He is the son of a nobleman who was recently executed for treason against the High Council. As punishment for his father's crimes, Xyloth was sentenced to exile in the wilderness, a death sentence for one so young." Thompson looked up at Xantar, his eyes blazing with fury. What kind of monsters would condemn a child to die like this? Xantar flinched as if struck. "My father, High Councillor Zargon, he decreed the boy's fate. I pleaded with him to show mercy, but he would not listen." The Zephyrian commander took a deep breath, as if steeling himself for his next words. "Captain Thompson, it was I who sent the distress signal to your ship. I could not stand by and let an innocent child suffer for the sins of his father. I knew that you humans would be the only ones brave enough and foolish enough to risk everything to save him." Thompson stood, still cradling Xyloth in his arms. The boy had quieted, his small face pressed against the captain's neck. "I have a son of my own, Commander. Had a son. He died of a rare illness 2 years ago. I couldn't save him then, but I can save Xyloth now." Xantar nodded, his expression one of understanding and respect. "Take the boy with you, Captain. Take him back to your Earth, where he can grow up safe and loved. He deserves a chance at a real life, away from the cruelty and madness of Zephyria." Thompson's eyes widened. "Come with us, Xantar. You'll face punishment for helping us, maybe even execution. We can offer you asylum on Earth." Xantar hesitated, glancing back at his soldiers. They shifted uneasily, clearly torn between their loyalty to their commander and their duty to the High Council. Finally, Xantar squared his shoulders and stepped forward. "I accept your offer, Captain. I cannot return to Zephyria, not after what I've done. Not after seeing the depths of my father's cruelty. I will come with you to Earth, and perhaps there I can find a way to help my people, to show them a better path." Thompson clasped Xantar's arm, a gesture of respect and gratitude. "Welcome aboard, Commander. Let's get the hell out of this place." The group began the long trek back to the shuttle. with Hawkins being carried on a makeshift stretcher. Xyloth remained in Thompson's arms, his small face peaceful in exhausted sleep. The bioluminescent forest seemed to whisper and sigh around them, as if acknowledging the strange turn of events that had just transpired beneath its glowing canopy. As the weary group trudged through the bioluminescent underbrush, the shuttle finally came into view. Thompson shifted Xyloth's weight in his arms and reached for his communicator. "Valiant, this is Thompson. We have the package and are ready for immediate extraction. Prep the med bay, we've got wounded." There was a crackle of static. Then Commander Davis's voice filled the air tight with tension. "Captain, we have a situation up here. A fleet of Zephyrian warships just dropped out of hyperspace and have us surrounded. They're demanding our immediate surrender." Thompson cursed under his breath. He had hoped to get off planet before the Zephyrians realized what had happened, but it seemed that Zargon was more on the ball than he had anticipated. Suddenly the communicator flickered, and a new image appeared, the scowling face of Chancellor Zargon himself. The Zephyrian leader's eyes were cold and hard as he glared at Thompson. "Sir Captain Thompson," Zargon spat, his voice dripping with contempt, "did you really think you could steal away my grandson and turn my own son against me without consequence? You humans have committed an act of war, and for that you will be destroyed." Thompson's jaw clenched, his mind racing. The Valiant was a formidable ship, but even she couldn't stand against an entire Zephyrian battle fleet. They were outgunned and outmatched, and Zargon knew it. But Thompson was not a man to go down without a fight. He had a crew to protect, a child to save, and a promise to keep. And he had one last desperate card to play. He turned to Davis, his eyes burning with intensity. "Commander, I need you to broadcast a message on all frequencies. Tell them that the Valiant has been infected with a deadly human virus. Most of the crew is already dead, and the rest are not long for this world." Davis' eyes widened, but she nodded grimly. "Aye, Captain, I'll have Dr. Patel provide descriptions of the symptoms, make it sound as horrific as possible. We'll need to sell this." Thompson turned back to Zargon, his face a mask of grim determination. "You hear that, Chancellor? Come any closer, and you risk exposing your entire fleet to a plague that will make the Black Death look like a case of the sniffles. Is that a risk you're willing to take?" Zargon's face paled, his eyes darting nervously to the side as if seeking guidance from his advisors. "You're bluffing," he snarled, but there was a note of uncertainty in his voice. "Am I?" Thompson asked coldly. "Are you willing to bet the lives of your people on that?" For a long, tense moment, the two leaders stared each other down across the vastness of space. Then, abruptly, Zargon cut the transmission. On the Valiant's bridge, Davis let out a shaky breath. "It's working, Captain. The Zephyrian ships are pulling back, putting distance between themselves and us." Thompson allowed himself a small, grim smile. "Good. Now let's sell this. Have Patel record those symptoms, make them as graphic and disturbing as possible. I want audio, visual, the works. Then broadcast it on a loop." Davis nodded and set to work. Within minutes, the airwaves were filled with the medical officer's clinical, dispassionate voice describing in excruciating detail the effects of the imaginary virus. Lesions, hemorrhaging, organ failure, all illustrated with gruesome images of the Valiant's dead, in reality volunteers from the crew in elaborate makeup. As the broadcast played, Thompson watched the Zephyrian fleet on the sensors. They were holding position, but even at this distance he could sense their unease. Suddenly a small blip detached itself from the fleet and began descending towards the planet. Thompson frowned, zooming in on the image. It was a single Zephyrian shuttle, small and fast, slipping through the blockade with practiced ease. Xantar, watching over Thompson's shoulder, let out a soft gasp. "That's my mother's personal shuttle," he said, his voice a mix of hope and trepidation. "She's a member of the High Council, one of the few who opposed my father's cruelty. She must have come to help us." Thompson nodded, a sense of relief washing over him. "Then let's not keep her waiting. Davis, keep that broadcast going. We're going to make a run for it." The group piled into the shuttle, Xyloth still clinging to Thompson's neck like a lifeline. As the small craft lifted off, skimming low over the bioluminescent canopy, Thompson couldn't help but marvel at the twists of fate that had brought them to this moment. A human captain, a renegade Zephyrian commander, a traumatized child, and a rebel councilwoman all united in a desperate bid for survival and justice. It was like something out of a holonovel, but Thompson knew that the stakes were all too real. As they broke atmosphere and soared towards the waiting Valiant, Thompson held Xyloth a little tighter, silently vowing to protect this innocent child, no matter the cost. He had lost his own son, but perhaps, in saving Xyloth, he could find a measure of redemption. The Valiant loomed ahead, a beacon of hope against the star-strewn void, and beyond it Earth, a blue and green jewel promising safety, healing, and a new beginning for a child who had known too much suffering in his short life. Thompson smiled softly, brushing a strand of hair from Xyloth's sleeping face. "You're going to love it on Earth, kid," he whispered. "No more pain, no more fear. Just love, and laughter, and all the ice cream you can eat." And as the shuttle docked with the Valiant, as the great ship turned its prow towards home, Thompson allowed himself to believe, for the first time in a long time, that everything was going to be all right. As the shuttle touched down in the clearing, Thompson and his team emerged, Xyloth cradled protectively in the captain's arms. The bioluminescent forest seemed to hold its breath, the only sound the soft hum of the shuttle's engines winding down. Suddenly a second craft broke through the canopy, the downdraft from its thrusters whipping the glowing foliage into a frenzy. Thompson tensed, his hand instinctively reaching for his sidearm. But as the shuttle's ramp lowered, a familiar figure emerged. "Mother!" Xanthor cried, his voice breaking with emotion. High Counselor Zara strode forward, her robes billowing in the breeze. Her face, so like her son's, was etched with a mixture of determination and relief. "Xanthor, my brave boy," she said, pulling him into a fierce embrace. "I'm so proud of you." She turned to Thompson, her eyes shining with gratitude. "Captain, I cannot thank you enough for what you've done. You've risked everything to save an innocent child, to stand against tyranny and cruelty. You are a true hero." Thompson shifted Xyloth in his arms, the boy's head lolling against his shoulder in exhausted sleep. "I only did what was right, Mom. No child deserves to suffer for the sins of their father." Zara nodded, her expression hardening. "My husband's reign of terror ends today. For too long I've been forced to watch as he's driven our people into the ground, as he's twisted our once proud civilization into a mockery of itself. But no more." She reached into her robes and withdrew a small data drive, pressing it into Thompson's hand. "This contains everything you need to know about the Zephyrian fleet, their weaknesses, their blind spots, and a safe route out of the system. Use it well, Captain." Thompson closed his fist around the drive, a glimmer of hope kindling in his chest. "Thank you, Counselor. With this we might just have a chance." But before they could say more, a deafening boom shattered the air. The ground shook beneath their feet and the trees swayed as if caught in a gale. "What the hell was that?" Sergeant Nguyen yelled, his rifle snapping up. Xanthor's face paled. "It's my father, he's here." As if on cue, a horde of Zephyrian soldiers burst from the tree line, their armor glinting in the bioluminescent light. At their head strode Chancellor Zargon, his face twisted with rage. "Xanthor!" he roared, his voice dripping with venom. "You traitorous wretch, you dare betray your own blood, your own people?" Xanthor stepped forward, placing himself between his father and the humans. "No, father, I dare to stand against a tyrant. I dare to fight for what is right, for the future of our people." Zargon snarled, his hand dropping to the plasma pistol at his hip. "Then you will die with these human filth." "Go!" Thompson yelled, thrusting Xyloth into Zara's arms. "Get to the shuttle, we'll hold them off." Zara hesitated for a split second, her eyes locked on Thompson's. In that moment a wealth of understanding passed between them, the shared knowledge of the sacrifices that must be made for the greater good. Then she was gone, sprinting for the shuttle with Xyloth in her arms. Xanthor followed, his weapon raised to cover their retreat. Thompson and his team formed a line, their rifles leveled at the advancing Zephyrians. Plasma bolts filled the air, sizzling through the foliage and scorching the earth. Private Rodriguez went down, a smoking hole in his chest. Corporal Janus took a bolt to the leg but kept firing, propped up against a tree. Thompson felt a white-hot pain lance through his shoulder, but he gritted his teeth and kept fighting. He had to buy Zara and the others time to escape, no matter the cost. Out of the corner of his eye he saw the shuttle lift off, its engines roaring as it clawed for the sky. A fierce, proud smile split his face. They had done it. Xyloth was safe. But there was no time to celebrate. The Zephyrians kept coming, an endless tide of armor and plasma. Thompson's team was being whittled down one by one. Nyshan fell, his helmet shattered by a plasma bolt. Hawkins, already wounded, took a shot to the gut and crumpled, his rifle falling from nerveless fingers. And then it was just Thompson, standing alone against the might of the Zephyrian army. Zargan advanced, his pistol leveled at the human captain's head. "Kneel," the Chancellor spat, his voice thick with contempt. "Kneel before your better, human, and I may grant you a quick death." Thompson laughed, a sound of pure defiance. "I kneel to no one, especially not to a monster like you." He lunged forward, ignoring the searing pain in his shoulder. His rifle barked once, twice, 3 times, and Zargon staggered back, a look of shocked disbelief on his face. The Chancellor fell, 3 smoking holes in his chest. But even as he died, his soldiers surged forward, their weapons blazing. Thompson felt the plasma bolts tear through him, felt his life's blood spilling out onto the glowing forest floor. But even as he fell, his eyes sought the sky, sought the distant glimmer of the shuttle carrying Xyloth to safety. "Live well, little one," he whispered, his voice fading. "Live and be happy. That's all I could ever ask." And with a final shuddering breath, Captain James Thompson, hero of the United Earth Space Fleet, slipped away into the waiting dark. High above, the shuttle docked with the Valiant, and the great ship leapt into hyperspace, leaving the Zephyrian fleet far behind. In the aftermath, Zara took her rightful place as leader of the Zephyrian people, with Xanthor by her side. Together, they began the long, difficult process of rebuilding their society, of turning away from the path of cruelty and oppression. And on Earth, little Xyloth found a new home, a new family. Raised by Thompson's sister and her husband, he grew into a fine young man, his heart filled with the same courage and compassion that had defined his savior. Years later, when Xyloth donned the uniform of the United Earth Space Fleet, he did so with a proud heart and a clear purpose. He would follow in the footsteps of the man who had given everything to save him, who had shown him the true meaning of heroism. And though Captain James Thompson was gone, his legacy lived on, in the life of a young Zephyrian boy, in the hearts of all those he had touched, and in the annals of history, where his name would forever be remembered as a shining example of the best of humanity. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.